Hello?
Now can you hear me?
Oh, hi, yes.
Okay.
I was like, oh, she's just busy.
No, I had actually said hello and I thought we were having a conversation. And I was like, she's giving me some weird looks.
I'm so sorry.
No, it was fine. It was cute. It was like, maybe she's listening, maybe she's not. I don't know.
Oh, gosh. Well, it's nice to hear your voice. Oh my
I'll
gosh.
get my camera up here and running in a second.
That sounds great. I'm gonna clean up my desktop a little bit because of the chaos in front of my eyes. My goodness.
That's what I'm doing. And I think I just restarted something. Didn't restart the whole computer, did I? I think no. I just
Uh-oh.
restarted. I did an update on a program and I don't think it restarted the whole computer. But whatever it did, it swapped my displays.
Ew, I hate that for you. That's.
It's like I set this up this week to make a different display, my main display, and now it's like, no, it's not. It's not your main
Oh
display.
my gosh. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's like one screen versus the other. Why aren't you
Yeah.
starting? There we go. It's the wrong camera.
Yay. Thanks. Hello, keyboard. Hi,
Hi.
Christina.
Oh man. I don't have anybody covering my front counter today, so
mm,
if I get a random walk-in, we might have to pause class for a sec.
no worries.
So,
Nowhere else I can go. How's things on your end been?
chaos.
Mm,
Yeah,
I get that.
I, this is the second day where I thought an employee was coming in and he's not. So, yeah,
Like not coming in because they're a no-show or just like miscommunication?
he he says he's sick,
Mm,
which I get. He did sound kind of icky on Thursday. Um, but he also said he slept till 8:45 last night. Like slept all day.
oh my
Literally slept all
gosh.
day. So either he's really sick and maybe he should be getting checked out at the hospital
Yeah.
or I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that stinks. As
So he
gosh.
texted me this morning, but of course I went to bed really late, so I didn't see the text till 11 o'clock when we're supposed to already be open. And then me being the dummy didn't wake up earlier to check.
I don't think that's your fault. My students do that with me too. Like I get up at 6 most mornings and then I'm teaching by like 7:30 or so. And they'll text me at like midnight. Miss Stephanie, can we move our lesson? Blah 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 has happened. And I'm like, girly pop, I'm already driving to your school at 6:45 a.m. I'm so sorry. Like if you're on campus, we're having your lesson. I'm
Yeah,
like, do not
I
text me.
I totally did just like oversleep. And that's been my issue this week is oversleeping. But then you add somebody else oversleeping on top of it, and now we have a business that doesn't run.
Oh no.
So it's what do I do in this situation where I live
I
a half hour
see.
from work and he lives 15 minutes from work and we're
Mm,
both oversleeping.
oh my gosh. It sounds like you're just exhausted too.
I did it to myself. I've been working late hours and not all of it was work. Some of it was just I'm not ready to go home.
mm,
Not ready for that half-hour drive home.
oh gosh.
So I
Emily.
I I do take some blame.
I'm telling
Understood.
my coworkers who stay up late because we have to, that we're just pre-gaming the time change. That's all we're doing. We're just
Right?
prepared.
Right? That's what I should be telling myself this weekend. Been
That's
doing
You're
that for
just
so
a
good.
week.
early preparing. That's it.
That's so good.
That gives me hope for next week.
Oh my gosh.
I feel
I'm
like if I don't get Sunday and Monday right, the rest of my week sucks. So we're gonna aim for a good Sunday.
I believe in you. Gosh, that time change. I thought we did away with the time change. I thought there was a like a like I
It
thought they
gets
did
brought up
something.
every couple years as a topic, but no one
Yeah.
ever does anything about it.
Never, yeah. Never happened.
They did talk about it a lot, I think last year or the year before,
Yeah. Yeah, I really
but
thought this was it.
nothing. Yeah, no.
I hate it.
No. Do you actually trust the government to get something done?
No. Mm. No.
Oy vey.
Oy vey indeed.
Well, we should probably get started. There's
Let's
not a
do
whole
it.
lot to cover today. So I was, oh, now I don't know which one's which. This is yours. Okay.
Notes.
I had to hunt down the old level 2 syllabus on Friday, and so now I'm making sure I'm on the right one.
Mm.
And my notes. Yeah. So today's just supposed to be assessment review, and so far we've only done Emily's assessment. So Emily, how did it go? It was yesterday.
I mean, for not being fully padded, it went pretty well.
I still have to pick out your pads.
Okay,
I
fine.
mean, I figured UPS isn't going to be coming by till Monday anyway, so I
You've got time.
I've got time.
Yeah,
They'll do pickup at like 3 on Monday. I might just make Daniel do it.
perfect.
Oh man. So that's basically all that was on the docket for today. Um,
Ta-da.
I should probably mark what we've covered and what we haven't on Piccolo because we have gone a lot of back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little discombobulated. um, okay, when we've talked about Piccolos, what have we talked about? Have we talked about their body composition?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. How to identify it and how to care for it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Um, have we talked about keys and posts and how pads are glued in and key corks and tenon corks?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think we've demonstrated a tenon cork yet.
Uh,
No,
no.
we talked about it
Yes.
like at the very end. I feel like that's where we ended, kind of.
Yeah. Um, types of glues
Mm-hmm.
to use.
Um, I don't think I have anything about glues.
Okay. So I don't think we've quite gotten all the way through what would be next week's class. It's technically listed as next week's class. I do remember we did do a bunch of demos on swedging and soldering and body dent work
Mm-hmm.
and just light demos, kind of all crammed into one day.
Mm-hmm.
Have we done a good flute adjustment, key height, lost motion? Did we get through all that? I'm kind of going back a couple weeks and forward a couple weeks to kind of figure out where we are at. So,
Yeah, I remember you showing us different key height tools.
mhm.
So I feel like that
Yep.
checks out.
Okay. All right then. Um, how about what questions do you guys have? Covered or not covered, like topic wise, as far as what we've done so far?
I think the questions I just have come down to very specific situations.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see some of those on my flute when it comes in, so I don't know if we want to talk about it today.
Sure, we can.
Okay.
We might just get a little ahead of, your one-on-one might be a little. We covered this on Saturday, but I don't really care.
Yeah, I don't care either. With how like chaotic all of our lives are, like hearing things 2 or 3 times is just really beneficial.
Yes. 100%.
So we've talked about like issues with pinning in the past and how like, oh, if the pin's in too far, if the pin's too thick, it'll like jam things up so the key won't move freely.
Mm-hmm.
This issue was an interesting one. And if you're looking at it and I'm just wrong, I just need to hear those words. The pins I ordered from Fareeze, I feel like they were too thin overall. And so I tried to nip them down so I could get more of the top thicker.
Uh-huh.
And I get it in. It's so hard to explain. I'd get the pin in and the key would swing fine, but then when it was compressed just a little bit, it would jam up. And I'm like, okay, this is an interesting scenario because if I was to turn the key system upside down, the pin would fall out.
So, just so we're clear, which pins did you buy from Fareeze? Did you buy the pre-cuts or the full length?
A full length and the pre-cuts. Unfortunately for the full length, since I filed down my nippers, they're not sharp enough to cut. So I probably should just go buy some new nippers at this point. So I was
you're using the pre-cut.
Yes.
Okay. You're okay. You're okay.
So it was a strange issue between, I feel like the pin's too thin, but it's also jamming up when it's inserted what I thought was enough.
Mm-hmm.
But then it would lock up. But then it would also, if turned upside down, fall out. So what is bonkers? I did not know how to handle that situation. You will see a missing pin when you get my flute because it fell out right before shipping. Like I was putting it in the case, it fell out. I'm like, it has to be mailed today. It has to. I can't do this again. So I'm sorry.
Okay, so I think from working with both pins and pins from different companies, the pre-cut pins from Fareeze have a very steep taper. So it might be connecting at the top of the pin, but it's not connecting at the bottom or throughout the middle. So when you're hammering it in further, it is flaring out a little bit at the top. It is binding things up, but it's not sticking because it's the only place that pin is actually grabbing in the taper hole. So when you flip it upside down and you shake the keys a little bit, out comes the pin.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So in that case, you can't use the pre-cuts. You have to use the full length one and make a pin.
Okay.
So this is the extreme version of having the correct pin with the correct taper and matching the hole with the taper that was there before and matching your reamer with the taper that your pin is. Like if your taper's different, you on like small, instruments that are, I say small, but student instruments that the tapers kind of vary, or really they didn't have a taper at all when they were made. They just had a straight hole drilled into them, and you put a taper pin in a straight hole, it's going to hit and it's going to tighten up when you hammer it in. It's why they kind of flare out on the hinge, on the tube itself, on the rod, when you're trying to get the keys off and it just doesn't want to feel like it's coming off. It's because the steel's been flared from the inside. So you can't do a whole lot about it. You just have to kind of get the keys off, and then you can, to get rid of that bulge, you can try. It doesn't always work. You can try taking your hinge rod by itself with just, the only key on there that you're going to leave on there. Put it on a steel block and grab another steel block. Both have to be perfectly flat and perfectly clean. And your rod has to be perfectly flat, but you can take that rod and roll it in between. And sometimes, if that steel is soft enough, you'll re-round the key, the rod itself, so that when you put keys back on, it's a little bit easier. It's not going to be perfect, but that's a little secret trick. Whenever I have one that's really tough, I'm like, okay, we're gonna kind of try to round this back out. But it's because when they punched that taper pin in, they only had a hole that was straight drilled, and that steel just kind of goes from this to this, and it's forcefully pushed to this shape. You can get this shape by taking a taper reamer that is basically these guys. So they're cutters. If you were to look at the blade, I don't think the camera is gonna pick this up at all. But you see how it flashes as I rotate it? That's because that side is straight. And then as I rotate, you see a corner, and then you get straight. These are 4-sided. So, but the taper diameter, or the taper angle, if that matches the pin exactly, then when you use this to cut your hole, your taper will match your pin that you're putting in. And so as you hammer that pin down, it just kind of locks into place. It only moves the metal a little bit instead of going from straight to hole. But if you have a reamer that's a different taper than your pin, you can still end up with that situation where it doesn't fit perfectly. On a student flute, that doesn't matter. It doesn't have to fit perfectly. Those pins are usually jammed in so hard, they're never going to fit perfectly. And you can see I normally knock the darn handles off these things because the handles are crap. So once you knock them off, though, you can put them in your spring holder. So that you can have a handle again. But on a professional flute, we're trying to get it so where that the hole for the pin and the pin itself matches, so that the pin has contact from the top all the way down to the bottom. And so when you have contact from the top to the bottom, that pinned key doesn't wiggle at all. It doesn't have any kind of wiggle this way or whatever fancy way, because the top and the bottom are touching at the same time. 2 pins really helps with that, but that's why some of them have 2 pins.
That makes sense. So how would that little skinny reamer be used?
So you put your key on, and just like you're lining it up for a pin, and you take that reamer and you put it through the pinhole in the same direction a pin would. So you got to always think large side on top, small side on bottom. And you can just use that to get rid of any burrs that might have come up in the pinning process if you accidentally nicked something, or if maybe they were factory and the factory didn't clean them up. You can clean them up that way. If the pin fell out, and you're going to make a new pin. Basically, anytime you use that reamer, you have to make a new pin.
Okay.
unless they left a lot of space on the top of that first pin. Because every time you take a reamer to the pinhole, you're cutting the top of the pinhole bigger, so that pin is going to go in deeper. So if that pin was flush to begin with, and now you've made the hole bigger, that pin's just going to go into the middle of the key, and it's not actually going to make contact with the key itself. It's only going to make contact with the steel. So you have to make a new pin.
Got it. So for the reamer, like, you just put it in?
Put it in and twist.
Okay. That's why it has the edges, so it can cut.
Yeah. It's okay.
I'm sure you have said that, but I'm needing things
I don't think I did.
times right now.
I think I just, it's one of those things I might do this. Like a twisting action. I talk a lot with my hands. And then not because apparently I don't, when I have the camera just facing down, I notice I don't put my hands under the camera to talk with my hands.
Secret hands. No.
I keep them close to me.
I think what we just went over is what I'll need to do to my flute. It just sounds like it makes sense. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say when you get my flute.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is you can always try another pin from the pre-cut box, but if you did that and it still didn't work, then then yeah, that's not going to be your answer. Those pins have a really steep taper. They're really meant, I think, for the student models.
Okay.
If you lose the pin on, it's so you don't have to go hunting for this tiny little thing. That's all it's for.
That's fine. It's good that I have them then if they're meant for students, because those are the clients I'm kind of wanting to curtail to.
Yeah. You think your 60s Bundy or Gemeinhardt or Yamaha, think those basic beginner instruments.
Perfect.
Yeah. And again, it's because they probably, I don't know for a fact, but I think they just take a straight drill and drill those holes. I don't think they drill them with a reamed hole for a pin. It's also, I think, why you can, on older horns, use blue needle steel springs as a pin, because they make those holes so straight from the beginning. So once in a while, if you see a pin and it looks blue at the top, and it looks cut very jagged, or not jagged, but sharp, like they didn't round it over or anything at all, usually it's because they used a spring. So the blue needled springs, you usually see them on oboes and clarinets. They're very sharp and pointy. And they're colored blue because that's the color the steel changes when it is raised to a certain temperature. So they've been tempered. So what they'll do is the older techs, they'll shove one of those in until it locks itself in place, and then they cut at the top and the bottom, and there's no taper to them at all. They're just kind of hoping that they stay. And they usually stay, but it's because they're so old that they don't have a taper cut to them or anything like that.
It works in their favor.
Yeah.
Lucky ducks.
Yeah. They can, if they get loose at all, they get loose at the top, because that top hole might, be a little bit bigger than the bottom hole. I usually take them out and swap them out for a real pin because they annoy the crap out of me.
Do you ask your clients first if they want that to happen, or do you just do it?
No. When it comes to the realm of functional, I don't really give the clients a choice. So the only thing that I might warn them on when we bring up pins, is when they're bringing me an instrument that's really old or really fresh from the factory. Specifically Yamahas. Yamaha's notorious for this, but I have struggled with some of the pins on Yamahas not coming undone. New Gemeinhardts struggle with those pins. I really wonder if they are using a machine to install them, entirely because they are jammed in there so hard. Nothing I do will knock them free. Like they added Loctite to the darn thing. I don't know what they did. So, when I get a client coming in for a COA and this isn't, a possibility that I can't get these unpinned, I might give them a warning ahead of time. Or if I don't give them the warning, and I try to unpin, I can't get that unpinned, I might tell them, hey, the next time you come in, help me remember that I could not get these unpinned this time. Also, don't take this in the rain because once you get rainwater in there, you're done and you're buying a new set of keys. Because if I can't unpin it, I can't change the oil, I can't remove rust, I can't do any kind of maintenance on that set of keys. So that's kind of where I go, okay, the client doesn't need to know every little detail, but I do think my clients, they like that I explain things to them. They appreciate it. The ones that don't really care will tell you. They'll go, it's fine. They're like, let's move on with our day. I'm like, okay. Let's get you in the computer. So, but the ones that really, are interested, they might turn into text one day. So, I'm kind of the opinion of it's better to talk about it and let them, kind of understand the process and also understand why they should not be doing this themselves at home without any training. So the more I can scare them into not touching their instrument, the better.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I do purposefully kind of scare my clients.
Oh my gosh. But way before ever getting curious in flute repair, I remember telling a student like, hey, XYZ is funky on your flute. Here are some local shops that could probably take it in. And they came back next week and they're like, my dad did it. I'm like, please tell me what he did. And I mean, that flute needed to go to a shop the next week. So.
Yeah. I've had students. So I had trying to remember how this went down. I had one client who had a little sibling who was just starting out on flute. They're, of course, a college flute player, so they kind of know the deal around things, but they were at college. And I think there was a family conversation happening all at once one day, and everything got stopped. But basically, little sibling's flute got dropped, and the foot tenon, this end here, was damaged, and it wasn't fitting in the foot joint. So dad goes, I can fix it, and grabs pliers with teeth. And as he's about to start to do this, mom's on the phone with sister. Is yelling through the phone, do not take those pliers to that flute. And it stops the whole process and saves the flute and brings it to me, and I don't have to fix plier damage.
Yay.
I just had to fix a bend in the tenon. So siblings are great. Moms are great. Dad's dangerous.
They mean well.
They do.
But my
they
goodness,
really do.
A whole chaotic energy there in and of itself.
That's how I pictured it. That's how they kind of explained it to me, and I'm just like, this is a picture that's forever in my head. I don't care if it's right or wrong. Another one is dad taking trumpet that has a stuck mouthpiece.
Oh.
Which is a free job. We do those for free. By the way.
As long as you have the puller.
Exactly. No, he doesn't take it to a shop. He ties it to his garage door. Ties the other end to his truck.
Stop.
Steps on the gas. Tears every single solder point apart from the trumpet. You now have a trumpet that's in a S-bend. And is, a Dr. Seuss trumpet.
Oh my gosh.
That came into our shop in Colorado.
Oh my gosh. Christina.
Well, conversely, I had a friend in college that her flute broke, and it was just like the trill key spring or something. And she was like, I need a new flute. I need a new flute. I need a new flute. And I was like, just put the spring back. You just gotta put it where it goes. I mean,
That
there it was
was
right.
one thing with your flute yesterday.
Yeah,
We're talking about there was like two springs that weren't attached. I was like,
yeah,
he broke.
I put it in that box real fast.
I had a phone call yesterday, and again, running late. I'm, on my way to work, and I get this phone call. Hi, I'm at your shop and you're closed. Yes, I know. Actually, I didn't at that time. I thought Daniel was here, but okay. How can I help you? Well, I was sent down here to buy oil for a flute. Were you? I don't typically sell that to clients. But
you see, the oil's on the inside. You don't need it at home.
yeah. Well, it's really that I was sitting down to get oil or some kind of grease for the head joint. No, you weren't.
No.
Sorry, that's not a thing. Here's what you need to do. You need to clean the head joint and the tenon where I'm not a musician. Can I have my wife call you later? Yes.
Oh, no.
Yes, sir, you can.
Oh my gosh. Dads.
Dad.
Yeah.
Oh.
He didn't bring the flute or anything. He was just coming to buy oil.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, no, I'm not selling that to you. I'm glad I can 100% help you over the phone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you drove to my shop.
Oh. There is a band director here in my area. I love his pedagogy very much. We are on good terms. I cannot stand, and we have had discussions about this, that when his flute players' tenons start having issues, he has them put like Vaseline on it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Freddie, why aren't you just teaching them to like wipe down their joints? Like, these pieces of metal are designed to go in. Like, we've had this conversation, and I just cannot, for some reason, convince him to stop putting Vaseline on the flutes. I tell the flute players, your band director teaches this, I will teach you this. And so the students know. I don't know, do you have experiences with other professionals who don't want to take your advice?
I mean, you can give the advice. You can't make somebody take the advice. Mm-hmm. In your position, you're in that perfect position where you can intermediate and guide the flute players themselves along a different path.
Yeah.
A lot of this is a old trick that technicians and directors have been using for ages, and I think it's worked for so long on flute because that the box tenon up here is soldered on, and it's so deep down that it's I don't know, it's such a good tight fit that you don't get a whole lot of rocks and dirt in this one, but more often than not this box falls off. So it's more of a danger for the foot tenon than the top tenon, I think. I have replaced, or not replaced, but I have resoldered one of these before, but I think I've done like 3 or 4 of these. So how I explain it when I have somebody who's not fully understanding is that grease gathers dirt.
Yes. And
that dirt is the problem. So to avoid the dirt being the problem, you have to not put grease here. And I've done this, I've had this happen to myself where it was a saxophone. All the instruments have this issue except maybe clarinet. But this saxophone came in, it was a school horn, or it was not a school horn, but it was, well, it might have been actually. It was brought in by our road reps. basically. I didn't have any direct contact with the director or the player at all. I have to rely on those road reps being responsible and explaining, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, when we give them an instrument back, which they do a lot of the times, but coming from a road rep, it doesn't always get taken seriously, or maybe they didn't have time to talk to the director when they're dropping things off and whatever. Or maybe I didn't tell the road rep to say, hey, don't forget to remind them about this. So there's a lot of miscommunications in that. Anyway, on saxophone, and I do find this more on saxophone than any other instrument. The neck tenon to the body. So you've got on a saxophone, you've got the main body tube, and at the top of that is soldered on the tenon receiver. And then you've got your neck, and it's got its own neck receiver and the neck itself, right? So you've got 4 pieces that are all coming together when you put it together. And at any point in time, if you get dirt stuck in the middle of that, the neck can get jammed onto the body. And if the player rips it off, it can get stuck in the body. Well, it's also another tenon that you don't want to use grease on for that reason. Now, as the technician, I want the neck and the body to fit together snug so that they're airtight, so that the neck doesn't. Saxophone players have a lot of issues with the neck actually moving while they're playing. So you want it to be snug, so that it doesn't move. You want it to not be so snug that they can't move it. They need to be able to take it apart, but it needs to be airtight, it needs to be snug. And their tenon receiver has a slot halfway down, so that air tightness has to start here, not up here. So everything up here, there's really no guarantee that anything on this upper half is going to seal. And that's because they've got that neck screw. Another thing saxophone players deal with a lot is tightening that neck screw down so tight that it snaps in half. Not a difficult thing to fix, just FYI. It's just kind of a pain, but you just swap the screw out. Anyway, what they tend to do is young players want a neck that's looser so it's easier to get on and off, and they want to just kind of crank down on that key to lock it in place. But that's not really airtight because you've got that slot. It's not going to be airtight. So what you want is a good fit between the two, just like we have with the head joint and the body. And then from that fit, you just tighten it down enough so that it doesn't swing side to side, and you can lock it into that position you want. Anyway, so I tightened this tenon, and I think I ended up on that one over tightening it and then having to spend a lot of time sanding and polishing it back down to the correct size. So I could have gone a little bit smaller because I overdid it. But I had spent so much time on it. I was like, this, it's functioning. It's really airtight. It's just a little bit tougher for some students to get on and off. Well, this student, thinking it's tight, I need to add grease, goes in, and on the marching field, worst place to add grease, adds some cork grease to that tenon. And at some point, a piece of dirt gets in there, locks it all in place, and the next thing you know, it's back in the shop. The neck is pulled off of the body, and the tenon is still stuck in the tenon. So now I've caused the issue. They've caused the issue, and now we both have a broken saxophone to fix.
Dear.
So, I don't know how I got off onto this story.
It's all good.
But it's a drama story, that's for sure.
Yeah. The cat has joined us.
Yes.
He's joining us. I actually have a question about tenants while we're at it.
Sure.
So this is probably like mostly professional flutists, but like like when somebody goes to like flute convention, say, and gets a new head joint for their flute and it doesn't match the tenons, what do you like? Is there a perfect solution?
Um, temporarily Scotch tape. If it's just like a trial, you don't want to make it a permanent fixture. A little bit of Scotch tape works great. And that you can always go from a smaller head joint to a bigger tenon, but you cannot go from a bigger tenon to an even bigger head joint. It just doesn't work. So at that point, if it doesn't fit at all, if the head joint's too big, you're just out. You can't try that head joint on that flute. You can see if there's another one that's a little bit smaller. As far as what you can do at a convention, anyway. Now, if you're really keen on that head joint, you could think about shrinking it, but I really wouldn't recommend it. Because head joints are tapered out and you don't want to kind of bottle up that sound. Yeah.
Oblong head joint.
Yeah. As a more permanent situation, I do know players that keep the Scotch tape as is and they just play with the Scotch tape.
I've seen copper tape too.
Yes, you can do copper tape. I installed copper tape? I don't think I have. The copper tape works so well. Once it's installed, it takes a lot for that copper tape to actually come off the flute. So when they come in for a repair and I'm putting a new head cork in, I don't touch the copper tape. I might clean up a couple jagged ends that, where the corners have kind of flared off a little bit. I'll cut those off. But usually the copper tape stays all throughout the cleaning and I don't have to mess with refitting. But I do have copper tape here in case it does come off. I can work on doing a refit. So personally, I haven't actually fit one, but I believe what I've been told is that you cut a small piece off that because you don't really wrap the whole thing. You're just trying to expand a portion of it so that it's tight. But you cut a piece off and then you sand it to fit. But you have to make sure you don't sand the actual flute as well.
So are you,
Yeah.
So are you sanding down the thickness of the copper tape? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, you don't have to actually sand it. You can, if it's too big, you can also just cut down the sides and take more and more off the sides until it does fit. That's another way you can do it. Mm. And I get that knowledge from refitting rings on clarinets. I do that more on clarinet rings than anything else. So if you ever have a student where the ring has come off a clarinet, clean up the ring on the inside, clean up the tenon join where it's supposed to fit. There is a correct up and down, so check that because ones that are actually press fit are actually tapered. But ones that are like plastic and they glue on, they're just glued. So those, just glue them back on. Don't mess with trying to do this. But the metal ones, figure out which way's up and which way's down. Usually you can tell from the ridges on the outside because if it's been pressed to fit, the ridges on the outside have been kind of curved in a little bit. Anyway, when you face that, you can take, I've done pantyhose, which is fun, or like this sandpaper that I have. I put it all away when we started. But the really thin fine grit sandpaper, you can take a piece of that and kind of shove it between the ring and the body. I usually do the sandpaper facing the body so it grips into the body, and then you hammer the ring down. If you have too much paper in there, the ring won't hammer down. So you take a little bit of paper out, and then until you can get the ring to go on, and you hammer the ring down. It's locked in place. You rip the paper off, and for fun, I take a little Sharpie and color it so you can't see it.
The little touches.
Yeah, it's all about the little touches. The pantyhose one, you just take a couple layers of pantyhose and you fold it over the clarinet, pull it tight, and then pop the ring on, and then cut the hose off. It makes for a more even fit because it goes all the way around. So the ring stays a little bit more truly symmetrical to the body.
Sense. So there's kids out there playing with pantyhose inside their instrument.
Yes.
I love this fact so much.
I never put it in my head that way, but yeah.
They're just over there like playing their region music.
They have
There's
no
pantyhose
idea.
right here. Oh, that tickles me.
Oh man.
Oh.
So with any other questions, topics you want to bring up?
Emily?
I did see when I was working on my friend's flute that I think one of her posts is bent. I didn't know enough about it at the time because I would have had to repin her trill key, and it was before this class, so I didn't touch it. So I don't know all the specifics, but like, do you just like bend it back? Or is there a special process?
I mean, you kind of just bend it back. I use the hammer to bend it. And you kind of look down the line of the posts to kind of make sure that they're all aligned together. Now, where if being the trill post, excuse me, the trill posts are usually easy to notice if they're bent or not, because you're just lining up two posts and maybe a brace in the middle. And usually
it was bent down in towards the flute.
Yeah.
Like
and that's how those usually get bent. They usually get bent this way. So that's easy to find usually. Take the pivot screw out if you're having to hammer it back, that way or whatever. Just so that you're not damaging your pivot screw. But if it's the main line, you really have to look at all of the posts. They all go in a line, and you have to figure out which ones are actually bent. Because if one of the ones on the end is bent and it's bent side to side, you can end up or if it's like the king post, anyway, you can end up where it looks like this one's bent when in reality it's like this one's bent, and you're just not lining the up in your eyesight correct. And then you end up bending back the wrong post, and now you've got two posts to bend back. This really gets dangerous on saxophone, just FYI. I've done a few berries where I've had to realign posts, and it takes hours. Because it's like, is it this one? Is it no, it's not that one. You need to go back.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think her post was bent. It was the post closest to the mouthpiece. It was bent towards the flute, and then the bit where the two trill keys necked on the rod was also bent.
Yeah, if the trill key itself isn't bent right there, I would expect the other post to also be bent. If the key didn't get bent, it would be both bent. So
all slanted.
Yeah. And that's also the bend that happens a lot on piccolo. So when piccolo posts get bent, it's usually the trill key post, or it's the last post for the right hand.
Yeah, that's what mine was on the right hand.
Yeah.
It fell off my lap on the great floor, so. But it's better now.
Oh no.
That's good. Just don't sit on it. That's my horror story from college. We got brand new piccolos when I was a freshman, and of course I'm a freshman where I'm not allowed to touch a homage. But our senior in the studio was totally allowed to touch a homage and was totally playing it for her orchestral recital, and totally sat on it and snapped it in half.
Oh.
And had to buy the school another piccolo.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Don't put your instruments in your chair.
No.
I had a This is just turning into story time.
They come with good learning examples, though.
So I may have told you this story, but I've told it several times recently. So I had in my job in Colorado, I had a mom come in with a bass clarinet that she had just bought off a neighbor for $100 for her student. Old bass clarinet made of hard rubber, which is not a material you see with piccolo, but it is a material you see with mouthpieces. And you don't want to get hard rubber wet, or really you don't want to get it too hot or too cold. It turns green, goes from black to green.
Hard rubber?
Mm-hmm.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah, it used to be the cheapest material to make clarinets and stuff out of, because it melts at a low melting point, kind of like plastic, and so they can pour it into molds and it hardens up. It's the downside of it is that it's made of rubber, and it has a funky taste. Like if you play on hard rubber mouthpieces, you kind of know the taste. And it is temperature. The color changes with the temperature. You can get it up to a high polish of black, but when you run it under cold water or hot water, it can turn green. And then if it hasn't been run under cold water or hot water and you leave it out for a really long time, it turns brown.
Ew.
So if you see old brown clarinets that are like made of plastic, they're hard rubber.
Wow.
The nice thing about it is it does play really well. So it does have a good intonation and qualities to it as far as density and sound production. But the taste and the price of plastic went shunk. And so plastic went up as far as making instruments out of it versus hard rubber. A little bit easier to work with and cheaper.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So on that, I don't think I've seen a hard rubber piccolo, but I wouldn't put it past. I just haven't seen an old enough one.
So interesting.
And they probably were crap. Just because piccolos that old are crap.
Oh, I want to get one of those old school D flat piccolos. Just to have
those
it.
might be hard rubber. Once in a while, somebody will post on one of the Flute forums. So I started playing Stars and Stripes Forever and practicing in rehearsal until I realized I picked up a D flat piccolo. Or the Star Spangled Banner. It's usually a patriotic song they're going for, and they've picked up the wrong piccolo, or they've picked up the wrong music, which happened to me in high school. Not to me, but my first chair. We were playing the national anthem at a nursing home, which means that no one noticed the problem. And we all pull out our music, and she's playing piccolo. She's got the piccolo music, and what we didn't realize, or I didn't realize, was that it was two-sided, and she didn't check, and she flipped up the D flat side and starts playing 3 notes in. She's like, crap! And all I see is piccolo down and music going, flipping.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I'm gonna go up the octave.
No, save.
She and I, we played together for so long that our sophomore year, junior year, we played really well together. We were doing a band tour, and I went to a private school, so our band tour included churches. So we went to my uncle's church, he's the pastor, and so me not knowing or realizing that my band director was in seminary school at the time. Just throw this off. My uncle and him had conversations before all this, and he let my band director take over the sermon for the day.
Oh my gosh.
So we did not only the music for the service, but also the sermon. And the sermon was about being in tune with God. And he wanted to, have a demonstration to the congregation of what not being in tune sounds like. So he asked me and my friend Jenny, who's my first chair, to play a note purposely out of tune at first. And so, she pushes in and I pull out, and we didn't do it enough because he points to us. So we play our note, and within a half a second, we've lipped it together.
Oh no. Oh my gosh.
That's how well we played together. We just went,
Nice.
yeah.
Typical flute player.
The whole congregation just laughed, and my director just laughs and go, "You guys need to do more." And so I pull out like a half inch or 3/4 of an inch, and she's all the way in. We're like, we got it this time. Funniest church sermon ever, permanently ingrained in my head.
That's such a sweet memory.
Anyway, I was telling a story about a bass clarinet. How my brain works. And I do have one other thing that I want to get to today, so we're gonna make this short and quick. So this mom brings in this bass clarinet. It needs a full overhaul. I do the overhaul. She's paid like $700-800 for this overhaul. At this point, she's put $900 into a bass clarinet. It's still worth it. When she brought it in, we did have a massive discussion on replacing the case because it was really old, and what kind of case to get, because she's handing this instrument to like a 6th grader who could very easily damage the thing. So we purposefully bought a 1-piece bass clarinet case, so he doesn't ever have to take the body and the upper and the lower cases apart. Then they pick it up, and he's got it at home for like, I don't know, a month, maybe 6 weeks. And the next thing I know is mom's bringing it back in, and she's like, I know we did all this work, and you put all this, work and effort into this thing, and I'm so sorry we were back so soon. And I'm like, not your fault. What'd he do? Open it up. Upper joint and lower joint are in 2 pieces, but not where they normally come apart.
Oh.
He had set it in his chair, forgot about it, and sat on it.
Oh.
And snapped the tendon right off the upper joint. So, which is, to be fair, a common repair with clarinets and oboes, is they snap in the middle and the center tendon just kind of falls off. And we had all the tools and the equipment to fix it, but it was going to cost her another like $250. So at that point, we were hitting the CEV mark on this bass clarinet that's 50 years old. We're getting there. We could have bought a new one at this point. At least put a down payment on one. So I was like, bring him in when we're done with repairing this, and I will have a little talk with him. And I will back you up, and I'm gonna scare this kid into not doing that again. So I did. When they came in to pick it up, I made sure that I went to talk with them, and I told the kid, your mom has just dropped this much money to get you this bass clarinet, and she's now had to drop this much money to fix this dumb mistake you did. Please don't do it again. So upset. I was like, I wasn't even that mean about it, but I think I did make him cry. And I was like, it's the only time I've made a kid cry. And they deserved it a little bit.
Just a little bit. I think it's becoming more and more common that even though kids, like middle school kids, are aware of money and how money operates in the world, and they're a lot more honest with when I tell them the expense of something, like, oh, that is expensive, or oh, that's not too bad. Back in the day, they're like, $5, that's so expensive.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're more like on it. And so, but still, like, they treat their instruments like garbage.
Yeah.
And so if I see it happening in front of me, I'm not mad at them. I'm just like, hey, like, we're not going to do that with our instruments. But if it happens again, I'm like, dude, someone bought that for you. Like, someone bought that for you. That flute is like minimum $600. Like, there are kids that don't see even Christmas gifts coming close to $50.
Yeah.
And so, oh my gosh. So yeah, we just gotta scare them a little bit.
Yeah. You do a little bit, and in a good way,
Yes.
scaring them in a good way. It's not that I do know technicians that just have a normal conversation with a player and the player's coming out in tears. And it's because that technician is just mean and grumpy. So I've had instructors tell me, do you make kids cry? Like, they've asked, do you make kids cry? And I'm like, not generally.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, good, because this tech does.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
not on purpose.
That's okay. Yeah, got it. We're gonna not promote that store all that much when it comes to repair. Like, I will promote stores for repair, but if I know that the technician doesn't treat kids correctly, or at least have the niceties to like slowly and calmly explain something, I'm not gonna fully recommend them, to young kids especially. But
yeah,
doesn't really matter because they're always busy, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna worry about it.
I have some similar thoughts.
Yeah. But I forgot where I was going with that.
And that you make kids cry. No.
Yeah.
Gosh,
money. A lot of kids, they're just not taught money at all in school. Yeah. And a lot of adults weren't taught money in school. And so a lot of adults also have the same issues. And so since they have the same issues, they're not going to portray that well to their kids, that money is, doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah, it's not paper, people, it's cotton. Can't grow on a tree.
Well, not only that, value of money. I sent this picture, so no joke, saw this last night on Walmart.com. You could probably look at it again. But they are selling, and it's completely accurate with pricing, at least mostly accurate. It's a gold coin, U.S. Mint, Lady Liberty on the front. I can't remember who's on the back. It's a 1 ounce gold coin. It's marked for $50 because that's what the coin was originally intended to be, as a $50 coin. They should have minted in silver because the gold value of that is $2,000.
I just pulled it up. Everything's $2,000 now.
Yeah. But it's listed as a $50 gold coin for $2,000.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It took me a while to figure out why. What I still don't understand why Walmart is selling it, because they're not a gold dealer, so that throws me. How it got listed on Walmart.com, I don't know. But you know what else I bought from Walmart.com?
What?
Instrument repair tools.
What?
You can buy kits and tools. They are crap. They are the wrong size.
I found nippers.
This is the spring hook. If I compare it
Ew.
to my spring hook.
Ew. Like, where is that wedge getting into?
Right?
My God.
Some of them, I'm like, okay, I can make that work. And that's these saxophone pad levelers. They're about the same thickness as mine, but I think Music Medics are thicker. The downside is they still have their burrs on them, so you have to go deburr them. But I had to do that to my set too, so I'm like, not that big of a deal. But like, I don't think Fariza's tool like this is that big.
She chunky.
Donkey. Yep. But yeah, you can now get on Amazon as well as Walmart.com random instrument repair tools. Some of them are good, some of them not so good. So,
More encouraging to all the dads out there.
Huh?
It's just more encouraging to all the dads out there.
Oh no.
Yes. 100%. I did like that it came with this little case. I did cut the case so that these other items, his is like, I bought like several things, probably like $50 of Walmart and Amazon tools. So they didn't all fit originally. It did come cracked though. It was broken before I did it.
Boo. I just found a leak light for $12.93 and spring removing pliers for woodwind instruments for $18.55. I wonder if those are any good.
I don't have high hopes for the spring removing pliers, mostly because I don't have high hopes for the ones that are actually made by instrument repair tech manufacturers.
This looks like, it literally looks like there's a piece of plastic. So there's like and there's like that side that has like the little slit or whatever.
Right.
And so this flat part is, it looks like white plastic.
Yeah, that might not work so well.
I don't trust.
So it was reversed with the prongs being plastic and the tool being metal. I could see that working and protecting the instrument at the same time, but it needs to be flipped.
Silly gooses.
Okay, well, this is not on the syllabus, but it is something that, especially with having issues with Daniel being sick so much lately, I feel like we should bring up. So I think I'm gonna do this by sharing my screen. I did print it out, but I printed it out for Daniel, so he and I are gonna have a talk on Monday. But it's still relevant. It's relevant for every single type of repair. Do pick up. Share screen. I don't know why, if you have two displays and I'm sharing screen on one display, why can't I keep you guys the same size? It still shrinks you down even though you're on a separate display.
That's weird.
Anyway, so we are at eastbendmusic.com, and the reason we are here is because they hold this information in perpetuity for free. So, down here at the bottom is a little button called Infection Control for Instruments. This is a project that I helped out with in 2020. And the whole idea with this project was to help, of course, during the pandemic, to help repair techs, teachers, players, anyone who deals with a musical instrument, and sharing those musical instruments between people, how to properly do it without spreading infection like crazy. So this is a topic that we really designed and wanted to be a topic that is constantly brought up and not just like a, hey, COVID-19. No, it rules the roost for every single disease that it affects, which is every one of them. So we didn't focus anything in this book. I don't think we wrote COVID-19 once. So we got nothing about any of the political issues or any argumentative issues that were going on then. This is purely for what to do to keep yourself safe when handling other people's instruments. Okay. And this, applies to teachers. This applies to students. This applies to even just the people helping move the instruments around whenever you're on a big trip. So, I cannot read this to you today. It is a long book. but it is one I recommend you read. There are some little sections that you can read through and then hand out to people who you may not want to know like everything about this, but I think as a repair tech, I think you should read the whole ebook. But for like, you know, your students, if you just kind of want to even take this and kind of write your own little thing as a little handout to kind of just help them remember that playing an instrument and washing your hands can be helpful, not just to you and the instrument, but other people around you. How to do that safely and how to do that where you're not touching your instrument, washing your hands, touching your instrument, and why did you wash your hands? You know? I'm kind of rambling because this isn't really something I was planning on until like 10 minutes before class.
This is so important though. There are so many students that not only just like, you know, like wipe their nose with their hand, but they'll pick and bleed and then be touching their instruments or music stands. And I'm like, you're literally this is a fluid health hazard right now. So this is exciting. Thank you.
So to kind of give you an idea of where this all comes from, this is written 99% by Shelby Rendall. The other 1% was by Laurel Parton. And I say 1%, it's probably more like 3%. I don't know. I didn't ever do the math. But Shelby wrote most of this and I just edited. So that's how I got involved with this. But so Shelby she should have put she did put a bio in here. Hold on. We're going to open this up. And I think we put them at the very end. Yeah. There's mine. This is really massive. It's blown up on my screen. My screen's blown up. Anyway, so Shelby is or was a clinical laboratory scientist, and she is a musician. She plays string, I think. Don't really know for sure. I know as a repair tech, she really loves rehairing string bows, specifically the bows. So, which is a need because you go through bows really quickly, a lot quicker than you do the instrument itself. Anyway, she served as a scientist for years, and she was in the military all before she got repair tech training. So that's where a lot of this information is coming from. It's coming from her experience as a scientist and a nurse, and you know, working in the medical and scientific fields. Laurel, same kind of thing. She's another clinician. She works mostly in the viral area because that's her chapter. She wrote the chapter on viruses. And then, you know, I just repair. That's all I do. I repair. So I edited this so that everything was legible for repair techs. That's where I kind of came in here because you should have seen the rough drafts. A little sciencey, to be honest. And I had to ask them about 1,000 questions going, what does this mean and can we rephrase it? So it ended up with a book that flows really well and reads really easy. It is, this helps. Let's shrink this down a little bit. Does that help you guys too?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
How many fingers does that hand have? Or are those 2 hands?
2 hands washing.
Okay.
There's 2 arms.
Cool. Great.
Yeah, it's somebody washing their hands and then a bunch of people helping out.
Okay, this is cute.
Shelby came up with this cute idea. I don't I don't really fully understand it, but I'm going with it.
It's cute.
It's the same picture on everything, so it's
But
the only picture that we actually did. Okay, and then Eastman during COVID-19 was nice enough because they also have a repair school. They decided they wanted to act as the host for this ebook. So from here going forward, they are freely hosting this ebook on their website, so you can always find it really easily. So I think I just want the table of contents. So how this is broken down, just kind of give you a little brief preview of it. There's a short little introduction, but the majority of like the sciencey stuff is in, and the important stuff is in like these first 4 chapters here. These are the chapters that actually talk about, you know, what, especially these these small 5 sections here. These are, what are microbes, what are bacteria? This is the really sciencey stuff. It's all the prequel stuff for how do we respond to it, and then you know, how do we respond to our personal hygiene? How do we respond with you know, when there is something going around, and then, you know, how do we prevent it? Risk factors. How do we, you know, clean up and disinfect safely? This doesn't give you specifics for materials. Okay, it basically just says that, you know, use the right products in their correct manner on the materials. They will not affect permanently. So there are some things that you cannot completely disinfect, and those are typically porous materials. So your pads, you cannot ever say that they have officially been disinfected unless you run the entire thing through a process where, you know, there's no way anything living can continue living in that environment. And as soon as you take it out of that environment, something new can be introduced, right? That's why sterile fields have to remain sterile, otherwise they are no longer sterile. So one thing to know is we never use the word sterile at all. It is a medical term that actually means this is germ free. So never use the word sterile. We use the word disinfect because it is a temporary disinfection of a product, and it's going to get reinfected the second you stop using the product on it. So biggest thing to know. And that was the biggest argument going around a lot during 2020 was, how do we sterilize? No, you do not sterilize your body. Do not sterilize your body. Your entire body. No. But a lot of people who aren't in the medical field, they just think of sterilization and disinfection as the same thing. And so you get into arguments, and it's literally just people arguing definitions. And it's like, okay, we can stop arguing this definition. I understand that you think sterilization is the same thing as disinfection. So I can either correct you and have an argument about it, or I can go, no, we actually can't do that, but this is what we can do, and this is how far it helps you. You know? So I tend to not argue with people. I just get them to where they understand what I'm saying. That's me. I'm passive aggressive. Anyway. So as you read through this, you will find we do use short codes for things. C and D, clean and disinfect. IC instrument, or IC is not instrument. IC is infection control. ICI, infection control for instruments. And there is a reference guide at the back of this book with a glossary of terms for words that might be a little too much, as well as abbreviations that we use. Hand hygiene, we used HH a lot. We use, where's the S's? Semi-critical contact, SCR, as well as at the top you saw CC is critical contact. Critical contact is an object that may contact the internal part of your body. So it's going to touch your mouth, it's going to touch your nose, your ears, anything like that. So that's mouthpieces, head joints. Those are critical contact surfaces. And then semi-critical are the objects that are, or there's also non-critical. Semi-critical, which is the next one. Sorry, it's been a while. So critical contact is the actual inside of your body. Semi-critical is things that are going in your eyes, nose, mouth, ears. So semi-critical are the mouthpieces and stuff. And then non-critical, low significance, contact to skin only. But if you don't wash your hands are then semi-critical, or semi-critical. So you don't want to put your hands in your mouth kind of thing after you've touched a non-critical item. My head's going backwards. So this is where I had to like go, okay, what are we talking about right now? So you'll see a lot of this, and if you need to refer back to it, there is a glossary of terms in the back. It's very helpful. There's also common questions that the whole time we were writing this, Shelby was posting sections of it on Facebook in our repair forums, and her most common questions that she got ended up right here. So she answered thousands of questions that year, and these are the ones that kept coming up and over and over and over. So specific, how do we address equipment and accessories? How do we address cases? You know, things like that. Talking about UC. Oh, ultrasonic cleaner. That's a tech word that you may or may not know. That it may or may not be in the glossary. If there's anything like that you find that you're like, what is this? Just ask. Yeah, I don't think we put that in the glossary because we wrote this for repair text. And they all had ultrasonic cleaners. Yeah, I'm trying to think, what else could we? Of course, NAFME, NAM. Anyway, it's like you can see a lot of these are just questions that she got. She was like, we have to include this one. I'm like, okay. Yep, there we go. Okay, at the end, there's this test your knowledge. So you can kind of quiz yourself on how well you understood the topics in the ebook. And then there is applying it. You can answer some questions. So there's that section of the test. This is the one that I personally really haven't had any like students like player students since 2020 because I kind of quit my lesson studio in 2020. But this is kind of what I designed, what I would want in my lesson studio when we talk about, how do we care and maintain for our instruments, spending a day to kind of fill this out with your student or having your student fill it out and then you review it. Talking about everything from, how we store it when it's in its case, when it's at rest, when how we hold it while we're playing. Things like that can be added into here. You can modify this however you want. I kind of went really broad with it so people could play around with it. But the whole idea was to bring up the topic of conversation and talk with your students about hand hygiene in general. Go as broad as you need to go, but some kind of a guide to kind of work through. The trip is a table. It does get down to a table. This is what we've pulled out as the most common pathogens that people generally ask about when we're talking about, infections and issues like that. So this table is updated on, I think she says, I don't know. It's a table she's pulled off of a website, and she's kind of condensed down to just the most common things that we deal with, mostly, if it's viral, bacterial, or fungicide, fungal, and like how long it can survive, basically. So how long do I need to worry about this being an issue for this group of students or whatever, or do I need to disinfect my whole shop if it was something really bad? Usually is not. That's usually safe for pad mites. So, and then the end of this is just her references for everything. She tries to keep up with them. Of course, website pages change a lot, so if some of these don't work, just let us know and I'll get a hold of Shelby and we will make sure they are updated and working. I do know she updates this. I think she updated it most recently this last summer, I think. It's been a while since she and I talked, but last time I talked with her, she was updating it, the whole thing. And then our profiles at the end. So along with this, we also wrote these little handout versions that you can take and do with what you like. Read through them, see if they might help you in one way or another with your students or your parents or anything, or if you just want to have a copy of the trip table alone in your logbook somewhere where it's not on the internet. You could also print out the test, and there's a couple flyers too that you can hand out. So anyway, so this is not a thing that is required for your grade or anything like that, but it is something I highly recommend to all my students to at least read through once in their life, so they have a better idea on, especially if you're going to repair. You're dealing a lot of the times with instruments, especially when you're doing the estimates and the quotes, that haven't been cleaned, that haven't been disinfected in any way, shape, or form. And once in a while, I do have somebody come in and say, hey, so I had a piccolo in Colorado. Mom brought it in for a repair. While it was in for a repair, found out daughter was sick with strep. Didn't think about it. Took the piccolo home. Didn't ask for a cleaning or anything on it. We just did an A&R, sent it out the door like normal. Thankfully, I didn't get sick. I don't remember getting sick. But they were back within, a week or two, because after the daughter got better, played the piccolo, got sick again, came down with strep again. So now mom's back in. Can we clean it this time? Can we make sure there's no germs on it? Yes, we can. And we'll go ahead and do that for you. And hopefully your daughter doesn't not get sick again. So who knows if it was actually on the piccolo? It's very likely it was on the piccolo. I do change head quirks and clean the head joint every time, but maybe it was on the body, maybe it's on the case, anything like that. It could have just reinfected her somehow, some way, or she could have picked it up somewhere else. We don't know. There's no definitive it was on the piccolo, but she obviously did get sick again and then cleaned the piccolo. She did not get sick again. So There are a few stories that get pulled up if you start searching this stuff online. There's a story of a bagpiper who died because he didn't ever get his bagpipe cleaned. And of course, bagpipes are just homes for germs. That's my one drawback with wanting to play one so bad. Is that the bag itself is always filled with air. How do you clean that? Until somebody explains that to me, I'm not going to feel happy or safe with one.
You know what? I'm going to find that out for you. My cousin, his private Christian school, he just graduated. Their band is bagpipes. And they've competed really? All over the world, and he went viral on TikTok. And so I think he knows some things. So I'm going to send him a text later.
No.
Also, just super bonkers. Like, my cousin's a professional bagpipe player as a teenager. Like, it's just. Anyways,
awesome. I need to meet your cousin now.
He's a cool kid.
We had a bagpiper at my grandfather's funeral. And let me tell you, that is the best and worst place for a bagpiper.
And he played at our grandmother's funeral. I agree.
Sorry,
he played at our grandmother's funeral, and I agree. It's the best and the worst.
And I don't know if this had to factor into it, but I think we're at a Presbyterian or Pentecostal church. It is their home church, his home church. This is story day. Goodness gracious. The whole auditorium is brick, and the whole building is, Oklahoma red brick, and it's just they had the bagpiper play all the way down the aisle and all the way back up the aisle, and oh my gosh, goosebumps. And you cannot control the tears when a bagpiper is playing and giving you goosebumps. It's just not a possibility. Anyway, also my granddad was English, so that also factored into it.
Really sweet.
He was English, and my grandmother was Scottish all the way, like a few generations back. Anyway. Story day for sure. I don't know if I want this completely online forever, but it's going to be.
They can deal with it.
The other story that gets around is a trombone player. Another article. I think he was in Florida. Or he visited Florida, and that's how they figured this out. Florida somehow is involved, at least in my head. The professional trombone player loved playing his trombone, never got it clean, constantly sick all the time.
There you go.
His family takes a vacation, convinces him they have to demand he does not take his trombone on this vacation, and just to get him to rest and recuperate because he's been sick so much. They take him on vacation. He starts feeling great. He starts feeling amazing. I don't know how long this vacation was, but I'm guessing a couple weeks. They go back home. He picks up his trombone, immediately sick again. And that's when mentions it to his doctor, and they're like, maybe you should get your trombone looked at. And got his trombone cleaned.
Thank God.
So I feel like brass players are just horribly notorious for just playing and playing and playing and not realizing. I've had trumpet players. I may have told you this story before. There was a trumpet player that came into our shop in Colorado, and he had so much buildup inside of his trumpet. You can actually change the bore size of the instrument with how much saliva and spit is calcifying inside the instrument. He changed the bore size so much that when we cleaned it and opened the bore back up, he no longer liked his trumpet.
Grounded. I hate that. Get rid of him.
He had to relearn why he liked it when he first bought it. Yeah.
This is
It
where I
happens.
appreciate just playing one solid tube that I can see all the way through. It's like, this is fine. There's no like nooks and crannies for saliva to like hide out in. And yeah,
Yes.
we'll get it.
Yes.
Oh.
We'll just clean it. It'll be great.
100%.
Oh.
It's like, and silver is it's somewhat antibacterial. So having a silver instrument, I think, also helps. The big thing though is the fact that most of our keys are open. The only keys that are closed, yes, they're on the bottom, so they're more likely to develop sticky issues. Um, but the whole flute has an opening at both ends that's the same size all the way throughout. So the bore is one size and it's just sitting in the case, just drying out, and the pads are not touching the body when it's drying out. That's why I like key leaves so much for saxophone players, and I'm waiting for the day they come out with one for flute. I think he's talked about it. But the have you seen key leaves? Do you know what they are?
I think you mentioned it briefly in level 1.
Okay.
At least my level 1.
Um,
Um.
Never heard them before in my life, so I don't know.
these are key leaves. They're made of silicone, 100% silicone. There's a little, and they detach from this center strap. There's this version for alto, tenor, and bari, and then there's this little guy for soprano. They also have this product called the Gap Cap. It's actually meant for tightening up the body in the case, as well as still letting airflow through the top of here. But key leaves were designed by a saxophone professor who was really just sick and tired of G sharp keys sticking. And there are several videos online. Hoping some of his videos were in here. If you find his ad videos on Instagram, they're hilarious. He is a really funny guy. Or at least his team's really funny because his ads are hilarious. There's one ad that he's got where they throw a saxophone on the ground. Like, that is commitment. But anyway, I think it's this guy, but I'm not sure. Might not be, but can't remember what he looks like. He took 2 brand new saxophones after discussing this with a friend of his who's a doctor. So they went through like a scientific method process to figure out how to test for this. He got in contact with several manufacturers until he found one that was willing to donate 2 saxophones for this test. And so he has 2 saxophones, identical make and model, same, off the same batch and floor and everything. He takes both of them and he tests them for a year. And I don't think he's got any pictures on here. He really should.
Christina.
Yes. Are we
I'm
over
sorry.
3 o'clock?
Well, I actually have a makeup lesson today, so I
Okay.
might jet.
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm sorry, but if y'all keep going,
it's
it's
3.
okay. I can watch the rest.
It's basically, I'm just gonna explain this and then we'll call it a day. I'm looking for things that I can't find, so I'm just gonna stop. He took one saxophone and decided this saxophone is not going to get swabbed at all this year. This saxophone's not good. Well, neither of them got swabbed, but one's not going to get swabbed, and the other one is going to be played the same amount of time, and it's going to have the key leaves product inserted before it's put away every day. So he teaches a lot of lessons. That's how he makes his money. So every lesson, he would do equal amount of hours of playtime on one saxophone and then on the other. And every time he stored them the exact same way, in the exact same place. He rotated it from time to time, whether they were flat, whether they were, on the end, whether they're stacked on top of each other, whatever. they got the same treatment over the entire year, and the whole time he took photos of I call it the D key, D sharp on the pinky, which is the worst, as well as the G sharp key. He had this little setup. He'd take time lapse photos of these pads, and he kept record of when was, on this instrument, when was the first sticky key, where was it, what key was it, and what he found was that the instrument that had no swabbing, nothing, it was a control instrument, got sticky first. The instrument that had the key leaves product lasted another like a month or two before it had its first sticky key. Made up numbers. I don't remember what the actual numbers are. And this kind of progressed. But the whole idea with key leaves is that's the wrong side. You're using those two little pieces of silicone in specific locations on the saxophone to open up the low D key, which in turn, and the low C key on the bell. So they both go on the bell, but it opens up the G sharp just because of the mechanics of the saxophone. The G sharp operates with the low C key. So as soon as you open the low C, the G sharp opens. Opening all those keys that normally are closed as the saxophone is drying, those pads are not going to dry to the tone hole. They're actually going to dry because they're open to the air, and the moisture is going to evaporate off of them. You're also opening up the entire saxophone, so you're getting more airflow into the saxophone to allow for evaporation. And then the gap cap takes it another step further by adding more airflow at the top. Because a lot of saxophones, I don't know if you know, but the end cap that usually sits into them is closed off at the top, so it blocks the airflow. So not only that, it adds airflow, but it's adjustable, so you can adjust it to the size of your case. Because a lot of saxophone cases, the end cap doesn't actually fit. So it's like it's a 2-in-1. You can take it a step further, and there are the little soprano ones also work.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check the rest of this out later. I'm 10 minutes late for the lesson, so
sorry.
I'm sorry. I'll see you later. I'll check this out online. I'm so sorry. I just didn't want to leave. Thank you so much, Christina. Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye.
You should have left. Yeah. I feel bad now. Anyway, you can get the little vine ones made for the upper 3 palm keys as well, to try to open them up. The whole thing is just to open up all the keys that are normally closed so that they dry out properly and they no longer stick. So with that being said, he didn't do any testing with swabs as well. I would have liked to see a swab versus the key leaves, but his testing, a lot of saxophone players just don't swab. So in that case, I just go have this product.
They are obnoxious to swab, so I get it.
They are obnoxious to swab, and especially if you haven't been taught the right way to swab. I actually had a student come in and tell me that they were swabbing from the small end to the large end, and I was like, you're making this harder on yourself. Go from the large end to the small end. Like, okay. Yeah, but we are over time. So for a day that we didn't have anything to talk about, we are over.
We found stuff to talk about. That's great.
So anyway, I highly, highly, highly recommend taking a day, maybe a weekend, and reading through the ICI project.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can, anytime we have, free Q&A time, I'm happy to answer any questions on this as well as the actual repairs themselves.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
So I hope you have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.